Well, Dr. Nandipha Magudumana's fate lies in the hands of Bloemfontein magistrate Estelle de Lange, who is expected to deliver judgment in her bail application this morning. The defense in the Thabo Bester escape case has tried to convince the court that Magudumana will not evade trial while the state is opposing bail. The state is of the view that she has reason to flee, as she has done so before. SABC News reporter Chriselda Lewis joins us live for the latest. Chriselda, a good morning to you. A very big morning for Dr. Nandipha Magudumana today.
Well, that's right, Naledi. She will know her fate this morning. Magistrate Estelle de Lange will deliver judgment in her bail application. You'd recall that Magudumana, in her affidavit, in her court papers, says that she was threatened, she was forced to flee the country with a convicted murderer and rapist Thabo Bester, and that she didn't do so of her own free will. You know, of course, that the state has been opposing this bail application, saying that she is a flight risk. Remember that Dr. Nandipha Magudumana was apprehended in Tanzania together with Thabo Bester, and she had been found in possession of several passports, which her lawyers argue have since been taken from her. She's got strong family ties here in South Africa, has assets amounting to over R1 million, so she has no cause to flee this country. You would know one of the aspects that also was quite critical was relating to the schedule of the offences that she was facing. Remember that there was a document that had been handed through from the Director of Public Prosecutions, in which the DPP confirms that the schedule that Dr. Nandipha Magudumana is facing relates to some corruption charges that she will be arraigned on, which means that pushing up the schedule, we'll hear today which version basically this court decides to go with, because her lawyers believe that she is facing Schedule 1 offences, and that should be grounds enough for her to be granted bail, and that it would be in the interest of justice as well. So just a few moments ago, I did see her lawyer, who had come through just moments ago, also waiting to hear early on this morning with regard to what that judgment will be. But essentially what Dr. Nandipha Magudumana is asking this court to do, or has asked this court to do, is to grant her bail, of course, pending this trial that will be taking place. So today we'll get further details in terms of whether she has been successful in that particular regard. I'm going to see if I can ask my colleague Tula Monare to come with me and see if we're not able to speak or get a glimpse from the lawyers who I think are gathered outside at this particular point, see if we're not able to have a very brief conversation with them at this stage. They had come through just a few moments ago, but of course have now gone out. We expect them to come back in. This is, of course, once the proceedings themselves get underway. I'm going to try and move towards this direction. So we're expecting that decision to be made this morning. What we do know as well, my colleague Kamugelo Siekoi did speak to Katliho Berengs. All right, let's take a look at, see some of the state prosecutors also here, together with some of the others from the state as well. And any minute now, we're expecting proceedings to get underway. You would see the state prosecutor there, Matoko, who is part, of course, of the team that will hear today whether indeed Dr. Nandipha Magudumana will be granted bail here this morning. But essentially what she has said is that she's not a flight risk. She does not believe that, she will evade her trial. She will continue to go ahead with it. But what we've heard also from the state is that given the fact that Dr. Nandipha Magudumana had basically fled, according on their version, of course, which she disputes and says this was actually against her will, she had been threatened, and as a result of that, the court needs to take into consideration how she left South Africa, and also the personal circumstances, the defense says, is part of what needs to also be taken into account. I did mention the family ties that they're also spoken of. The state still in a conversation there, and I'll try to see if in just a moment the lawyers will be able to make their way through to this particular section any moment now. We're also expecting Dr. Nandipha Magudumana to also make her way up to where we saw of course, from the holding cells here at Court 18, and that is Court 18, where, of course, she will be coming up from. So quite a big day today, in that with the defense basically saying that it would be the interest of justice for her to be granted bail. The state has, of course, said that they do not believe that would be just, and that she should be denied a bail in this instance. We're expecting that a judgment to be handed down, as I indicated, by Magistrate Estelle de Lange, and probably I would say a plus minus about an hour, I think at most, for her to hand down that particular judgment. And that judgment as well is also scheduled to speak to. You would know that the other accused in this particular matter are back in court. This is in October. And whether Dr. Nandipha Magudumana will be granted bail today, that is certainly something we will have to wait and see. I'm trying to scour around here just to see if there's anyone that we're able to speak to at this time. It seems the lawyers have moved from where they were towards the direction of possibly the other individuals, interested individuals in this particular case, but we'll move towards this direction now as we wait for them to come through, because we know that at this particular time I'll move towards this direction and perhaps see if we're not able to find any of them towards this particular direction. So we're expecting proceedings to get underway just any moment now. We'll certainly alert you once that has taken place, but at this particular time we've not seen the father of Dr. Nandipha Magudumana at this particular stage, who is usually a figure who's come through to this particular court. You would recall the last time that he was here, they had been celebrating their daughter's birthday, and we understand that there are also some other family members who might be here today from as far as KwaZulu-Natal. I'm going to head towards this direction, towards the court, to see if at all we will be able to speak to some of them at this particular time. But we will have, of course, breaking news, whichever way this particular case does go. That a bail application, the decision on that bail application, will be made known here this morning. And it doesn't seem like we're scheduled to start at any point, with the state prosecutor headed towards that particular direction. So still waiting for Dr. Nandipha Magudumana to emerge from the holding cells, which is just right here at the bottom, and we're expecting that decision. We're expecting that decision to be made known in about the next couple of moments. We'll move towards this direction. Here it does seem like there had been some we'll head towards this particular direction, where we're expecting some of the family members of Dr. Nandipha Magudumana to also make their way through to this particular direction. So just stay with us for just a moment as we expect some of them to make their way through here any moment now. And if we just look back at this particular matter, you'd recall, of course, that Magudumana has been incarcerated since she arrived in the country, and this was in April, together with Thabo Bester. This is after they had been apprehended. Let's move towards this particular direction. I'll ask my colleague to come this particular way. Let me see if I can't speak to the NPA. And every single time I see you in the morning, apologies, Ntate Paladi, you're already live on the SABC News channel. Are you hopeful this morning that the NPA has done enough in opposition of Dr. Nandipha Magudumana's bail?
Yeah, definitely. We are very hopeful that the court is not going to release her on bail.
The issue relating to the schedule The state prosecutor obviously arguing quite strongly that the schedule itself should be taken into account. The DPP's letter that was also sent confirming that it's actually a higher schedule and that she would be arraigned on corruption charges. Talk to us a bit about your hope with regard to that and what this court will find.
Well, we still maintain that the bail application should be a Schedule 5 bail application. Even the DPP wrote a letter to the prosecutor dealing with the matter confirming that it's a Schedule 5 bail application.
All right, thank you very much indeed. I appreciate your time. I'll ask my colleague to look towards that direction there. Thank you very much indeed, Peladi, who is speaking to us, of course, from this direction. And let's move towards here, some of the interested parties as well. We're expecting some of those family members, of course, to make their way through here any minute now. But quite notably as well, you would recall last week, Dr. Nandipha Magudumana had been supported by her sister as well as her father. No particular sight of them here this morning, but what I do understand is that there might be other family members that will be in attendance here today. The Bereng family, you would recall, a bit earlier on this morning on our sister program as well. Our sister program also on issues relating to the Bereng family. Recall that Katlego Bereng's body was used as a decoy in this escape plot. The family also not expected to be in court here this morning, them indicating they would rather watch proceedings from home, but are basically saying that Dr. Nandipha Magudumana should not be granted bail. She cannot be allowed, that's what they say, to go home, while on the other hand, you have, them who still have no closure, as they say, with regard to, what really happened to their child. As far as they're concerned, all that was used, their child was used as a decoy in this grand plan for Thabo Bester to escape from the Mangaung prison. And on their version, they say that they believe that Dr. Nandipha Magudumana should not be granted bail today. But of course, this court will ultimately decide which way that goes this morning, whether she'll be granted bail or not. You'd recall, of course, some of the other aspects. I'm going to ask you to stay with me for just a moment as we're expecting more of those family members to make their way through here any minute now. I'll ask you to stay with us. You would see also security that has been put here ahead of the proceedings here this morning. So Dr. Nandipha Magudumana will know her fate. You would recall, of course, that she's been through quite a number of aspects before she had brought through her bail application. This was last week. She had reserved that right to bring that bail application. But what was quite, startling and what many had not been expecting was the fact that there had been her indication, or nowhere in her papers before had they indicated that, nowhere did they indicate in their papers at any given point that she was under any duress. Remember the previous court matter that had been in the Bloemfontein High Court had basically spoken to the fact that she was challenging how she was transported from Tanzania to South Africa. And she basically said that that was an extradition which had been disguised as a deportation. You would know that those two processes are completely different. And in an instance like that, while that High Court had found that it was a forced extradition, one of the other aspects, that was used by the state here in this particular bail application is when they said that, she was even challenging the fact that how she was brought back to South Africa. If she is now saying she was forced, why was then she not happy or glad that she was being brought back to South Africa? Also, you would recall there'd been an aspect of when the previous appearance where she had appeared alongside the other co-accused together with Thabo Bester, and the manner in which the two had reacted towards each other was also something that came up inside court, where there'd been murmurs of smiles that smiled towards each other. So the defense or the state in this particular matter basically basically saying that that could also point to a particular way where she says that this is the person who forced her to flee under duress. She felt threatened. It was against her will, but the manner in which she reacted with him while they were in the dock together is also something that this court should basically also take into account. I'm trying to see if we're going to have any headway. Still waiting for the lawyers themselves to also come through this particular direction. I'm not sure at this stage if Dr. Nandipha Magudumana has made her way inside or up from the holding cells at this particular time as we speak to the National Prosecuting Authority, who indicated, of course, that they're hopeful that their argument was enough to ensure that she is not granted bail, arguing that it would not be in the interest of justice for Dr. Nandipha Magudumana to be granted bail here today. But we'll certainly hear what the court has decided. And as far as the National Prosecuting Authority is concerned, in terms of that letter that was received from the Director of Public Prosecutions, they are maintaining that this is a Schedule 5 bail application, because as we saw that letter from the DPP, which indicated she will be arraigned on alleged corruption, that of course being Schedule 5. So in that instance then, it subsequently means if it's a Schedule 5 offence, then the onus of course will be on to ensure that we look towards that particular direction. Let me see if we're not able to track down any of the lawyers at this particular time, but a lot at this particular stage. Dr. Nandipha Magudumana basically saying, she has the right to liberty until she is convicted. That is what is stated in this bail application of hers. And you know that amongst the charges that she faces are fraud, corruption, the violation of bodies relating to the escape of Thabo Bester. That was, of course, in May 2022. So, she basically saying, that she was kidnapped. A state of vehemently disputing this. Magudumana's lawyer, you would recall, Machini Mutlawung, basically also saying that the state had not been able to provide evidence that successfully rebuts her version of events. Mutlawung saying that she has the right to liberty, that will be compromised if she's not released on bail, and said there was no indication when the criminal trial itself will also proceed, in that the investigations are still ongoing into this particular matter, and as far as the defence is concerned, keeping her in jail would violate her constitutional rights. But taking all those aspects certainly into account, just very quickly let's go inside and see if there's been any movement in terms of Dr. Nandipha Magudumana making her way inside the courtroom. I don't think so at this particular stage, as of course we've seen the NPA, but all right, just stay with us for 1 second. It certainly seems like she is coming up at this particular time. I'll ask you on the channel to stay with us, and Dr. Nandipha Magudumana will be making her way up. All right, I understand not just yet. I'll hand over to you in studio and stay with us on our visuals, and we're expecting her to make her way up any moment now. But perhaps if you'd like to stay with me, let's do so. We expect that any moment now there could be that possibility that she would come up. You'd recall as well that the state prosecutor also, are questioning the strength of Magudumana's claim that she'd been kidnapped. Matloko also pointing out that, Magudumana did not open a case against Bester. Recall, of course, that there'd been questions about if indeed her version is to be believed, that she'd been kidnapped, that she had basically left or fled the country against her will, that why did she not then open a case against Thabo Bester? Recall that was the first time that we'd heard that version, which had previously not been in any of the court papers before. Part of what the defence also stating is that Magudumana does have strong family ties here, already indicated that she has assets over $1 million. Her passports have also been taken. Recall, as I had indicated, she'd been found in possession of those passports in Tanzania, and the defence says those passports have now been taken, trying to argue the point that she is not a flight risk. Of course, the state vehemently against what the state had been arguing, it pushing towards the aspect that indeed this is someone who had left for Tanzania with the Thabo Bester. This, of course, according to the state, as far as it's concerned, she left voluntarily with Thabo Bester, and that version regarding the kidnapping should not be taken into account by this court. So we're expecting just a few moments for her to come up from the holding cells. I'll hand back to you in studio and we'll connect with you shortly. Naledi?